Shalom. I am so excited to introduce you to Keturah Rena. Keturah Rena plans a water birth at her home in Belize, assisted by a Mennonite midwife. Although things didn't go exactly as expected, Keturah Rena reminds us about having an advocate that is for you, especially in a hospital setting. She says that having that advocate keeps us out of the risk of being taken advantage of when we are in that laboring and delivering vulnerable state. Keturah Rena is a mother of four. She homeschools all her children. She is an organizer in her community, and she is a Hebrew book author. So make sure you go and buy her books and make sure you support what she has going on in her community and beliefs. And also go check out her sites and see everything that she has going on. And if you love her story, make sure you head over to Hebrew Homebirth and join our community. So without further ado, let's check out Keturah Rene's story.
Well, shalom. So I just wanted to start with asking you to introduce yourself and share a little bit about yourself before we get into the birth story.
Well, my name is Whitney Simon. That is my government name. But my Facebook alias is Keturah Rena. Um, I'm a mother of four, been married for 13 years and 32 years old. I'm an author, a stay-at-home mom, a homeschool sufferer. I don't know. I wouldn't call myself like a survivor or anything. We're making it through. Um, yeah, my son is 11, and I have a 9-year-old daughter, a 4-year-old daughter, and a 1-year-old daughter, and we all live in Belize.
Belize, warm and awesome. Like that's where I would love to be right about now. But all right, so I you said you had four. So the first, so were all four of them natural births?
Um, all four of them were vaginal births, but two of them were like natural births with no medical intervention to the extent of medicine, medication, I guess.
Okay, and so you said two. So would it be the first two that were with medication and the last two that weren't?
No. So the first one, I was 19 when I had Kamari, and I was afraid of him coming out with drugs in his system from like an epidural. So I decided that I wanted to go all natural for my very first baby. I was a little bit crazy.
Wow.
I don't know.
Wow.
Did some drugs or something. I'm not really quite sure what was wrong with me, but um,
Brave.
I talked about it my whole pregnancy, and my mother is like my number one fan. And so she was my support system. So we actually came up with a code word, which was shark bait, ooh, ah, ah. And unless I said the code word, she was not going to let me get an epidural because she knew if I said shark bait, that was like my
Wow.
tap out. She knew if I said that, I really was done. So I remember like being at a point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. I want an epidural. And she was like, you didn't say the code word. And the nurse was like, well, ma'am, she says she wants an epidural. And my mom gave her that mother look like she didn't say the code word. If she doesn't say the code word, she doesn't
Wow.
want an epidural. So
Wow.
she honestly is what got me through my first delivery with no epidural. The second one, I had an epidural. The third one, I had an epidural. Only for the simple fact that I knew we were moving to Belize, and if I ever got pregnant again, there would be no chance to have an epidural. So I figure I might as well enjoy that delivery. And then my fourth one was no epidural, and she was born in Belize.
Wow. And she was born in Belize, you said.
Yeah, so she has dual citizenship. She's an American and she's a Belizean.
Nice. All right, so okay, so what would tell me about that story, the one your last birth in Belize. So that's totally different because, here, like you said, you can get anything you want. You can get any medications you want anytime. It's totally different, I'm sure, like dealing with, medical professionals and like you said, getting access to certain drugs or um, things that you would get in the United States. So how was that?
So the Belizean medical system, um, medical assistance is pretty much free for the most part. Um, so I could have technically had my baby for free. But just like in the United States, there is a high uh, mortality rate of pregnant women. So it's a third world country and the hospitals are not the best. So I had decided, probably before we moved here, that if I ever did get pregnant, that I would not be going to a hospital. So my baby was born at home. I actually had a friend who had also done a home birth. I met her here. She also had done a home birth here, and she was also a Black woman. And so, she had kind of steered me on the path of finding like a midwife, which you would think that in a third world country where people would be a lot more like holistic, that a midwife would be easy to find, but it's actually kind of like ostracized. They do allow midwives in this country, but the practice is looked down upon. So it's kind of like a hush hush secret thing. But fortunately for me, I was able to find a midwife to help me deliver my baby. Um,
So you said you did find a midwife?
I did find a midwife. And so she's what they call a Mennonite, which is a version of like Amish. So they like some Mennonites, not all of them, live like real rural and they don't have technology and things like that. So I don't know to the extent to which she lives, but she happened to be a Mennonite. Um, so my baby was born at home. It was like my first opportunity to have a pool birth because in the States we have Kaiser and Kaiser doesn't do pool birth. So I was always like super excited. She had the pool. I was like, yeah, home birth in a pool. Um, but as I got closer to like actually having to deliver my baby, I realized that things here are a lot different. So a lot of places don't have hot running water. Like in the States, you have water heaters, but here you boil water, and they have water heaters, but they don't necessarily have the tank water heaters. They're like different, and so they will heat a smaller portion of water per minute. So um, by the time I realized I wasn't labeled, it was kind of late, and they started filling up the pool, and the water heater wasn't working, and because I had bought a small water heater,
Yeah.
it wasn't working. So we were trying to boil water, and I think I was probably about 9 centimeters dilated, and we probably
Wow.
after an hour probably had like that much water in the pool.
Wow.
At that point in time, I had to make the decision that just go ahead and stop raising my water bill because this clearly is not going to happen because this baby's going to be here before we get the pool full.
Wow. So, okay, so then um how was laboring like that? Like, so you expected to be in the water, in like some warm water laboring? Is that what
In my
your
in my
expectation?
in my bedroom with my, diffuser going and the lights. Yeah, no, none of that happened. So my mother was not able to make it, which, as you know, babies kind of come whenever they want to. My babies are always late. So my mother wasn't here. There was another sister who was living with us at the time, so she was here. And I had scheduled for a friend to come get my kids, so she came and got my children. And then we have like a community of Black expatriates here, and so there's a lady named Latavia who is her coin name is Miss Moms, and everybody calls her Miss Moms, and she genuinely like is another mother. So I
Wow,
was like, I need you here. So she was here
that's
and
nice.
talk smack about me the whole time because the fact that I waited till like she literally got in bed and I was like, I think I'm in labor. Um, so she was my coach. She was my stand-in coach for my mother, and she just was coaxing me through it and helping me through the contractions, and doing all the things that a good mother does when you're in labor. I guess at one point in time, she was rubbing my back and I told her, stop touching me. Like I kind of flipped on her, which I don't remember at all. Um, and so my daughter was born right on the side of my bed. I don't remember what time. It was really early in the morning. Um, and that was it. When I got done, I laid in my bed, cleaned everything up, and I got right in my bed and laid down, me and my baby.
Oh, okay. So after you delivered her, like how was that? Like, so you delivered her, like was she somebody caught her, you caught her? How was that?
Yeah, I don't really know.
You don't remember? It was just so quick, huh?
I think the midwife, I think if I remember the story correctly, um, Latavia was rubbing my back. That's that period of time where I guess I kind of just don't really remember that half an hour. So
Yeah.
um, Latavia was like, hey, you need to get over here. There's babies coming, and the midwife and she had a helper and came over there quickly and caught the baby. And I did not let them cut the cord at first. I made them leave the cord attached to all the blood had drained out of the placenta or the cord, which wasn't very long because she said there wasn't a lot of blood in the cord left. So um, I just remember us getting in the bed and me just laying there and, eventually, I delivered the placenta. They took the baby, they uh, weighed her and everything. She had she had like a Doppler. Of course, she doesn't have like all the big equipment that they would have at a hospital, but she had, everything that she needed so that she could do what she needed to do as far as, the weight, the lengths, the measurements. And those things were also needed for me to be able to go and turn in so that I could get my paperwork for
Yeah.
Zahara.
Okay. All right. And so, um, you said before that, you know, you would desire to have, like you said, the last child, the third one, that you um wanted to get the epidural because you knew in Belize you wouldn't. Do you think that changes like now, or do you think um like if you're in Belize, would you have gotten an epidural? Are you happy that you went natural or
I don't trust medical professionals in general, and really don't trust them here. Um, just, a lot of horror stories. So I still would not, even if they had epidurals available, I still wouldn't get an epidural here.
and
Um, Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say that do you think like okay, so when you said about getting an epidural, do you think it like a mindset change into like how you look at how you should do birth or how the Most High desires us to do birth, or like was there like a change in your mindset? Because like I could say for me, like yeah, I had epidurals and everything, and like when I came into like more understanding of like just being more natural and like how you just mentioned about your trust in the medical system. um I kind of like after I had my fourth, I was like there's no doubt I'm only going to go natural from now on. And as I learned more and about my previous births and some of the side effects and issues I had after getting certain um anesthesias and things of that nature, I was like, okay, this is not like really beneficial, like really for my body. And so now I think this is like the way to go, natural. So did something like that change in your mind, like say, after you having that last epidural to having the natural?
Well, I mean, I think hindsight is 2020. When I had my first child, they actually coded him. We struggled. And so I think that altered my perspective on having an epidural because it was like I was laboring and and I was pushing them out so fast that they were like, stop pushing. But that part was easy. But like the whole time that I was in labor, it was just like he would come down and he would go up and he would come down and he would go up and he would come down. And so again, I wasn't there for very long, but both of us were just exhausted by the time he came. I think I birthed him in like 13 hours or something like that. And so because, it was just like constant, like I had rolling contractions. So it's like I never really had a chance to kind of like come down off. I always like imagine it like a roller coaster. So it's like, the contraction, you're going up, and I would start to come down, and then I'd go back up, and I start to come down. And so I was just, that for 13 hours, not really having a chance to catch a breath, frightened me, I think. And it's not something that I wanted to experience again. Not only that, I in my young mind was like, I'm gonna go natural so that my baby will be healthier. But in the end, they end up coding him. So then I was like, did I really?
What do you mean by coding? What is?
They code blue because he just wasn't breathing properly,
Oh, I see.
because we were exhausted from just the whole ordeal. So it's like, as parents, I think we try and make the best choices for our children, and then sometimes things don't go according to plan, and then it makes us really kind of think about our decisions that we made. So it's like, was that really the best thing? That had I gotten an epidural, regardless of whether I was going through, it wouldn't have been such an ordeal, and then maybe he would have came out and they wouldn't have, coded him, or whatever the case may be. So that kind of changed my perspective, because you see labor on TV, and they're like talking, and they're having a good time, and they're playing games, and you watch these birthing videos, and it's like this, I won't say wonderful, but it's a more relaxed environment. And my labor, it just 100% wasn't like that with my first son, you know.
Mhm.
And with my second daughter, they actually induced me, and so they kind of more or less pushed the. I wouldn't say they pushed it, but they were like, "It's gonna hurt more, so you probably should really get an epidural." And my mind was already, from my last pregnancy, my mind was already like, "Yeah, I'm gonna get an epidural because I don't want to have to experience that again." And then with my third one, again, I was just like, still the first one was kind of in my mind, but I was like, well, from now on out, I'm going to have to do the first labor all over again. So I might as well just enjoy it.
I
Um,
see.
but after having Zahara, my labor with Zahara was nothing like my labor, like my first labor, my labor with Kamari. It was, labor hurts. I'm not going to say it was like pleasant, but the experience in general was a lot more pleasant. It
Do
was quicker also.
and do you think you like you that maybe like how would you say that it was what do you think made that experience, much more pleasant? That's my question.
Um, I think by the fact that it was baby number four, it's like, you've done this a time or two. Even though every time you're in it, you're always like, oh, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be pregnant. I don't want this baby. I hate this. I'm never getting pregnant again. At least that's me. Every time I
Yeah,
get
yeah,
pregnant, I'm like, I never want to be pregnant again. This is the worst thing ever. What's wrong with
yeah.
me?
Same here,
um,
same here.
so I think just experience, I think, played a role. But also, I remember, like, they always tell you have these birth plans, and I wasn't like woke, right? But I was awakening. And I knew that laboring on your back was dumb. Like, historically, women didn't labor on their back. And I told them I didn't, like, in my birth plan was I did not want to labor on my back. And they were like, no, I'm sorry, it's your first baby. You're gonna have to labor on your back. And you're in labor. Again, I full swing labor. Like, that's why it's really important to have an advocate there, because when you're going through it, like, you don't have time to sit here and argue with people. Like, especially when I'm having rolling contractions, like, I'm in constant pain. I really cannot, I just do not have the mental capacity to, like, express to you how much I don't want to be on my back. And so I feel like that, played a role as well. In my room, I got to be on my birthing ball. Yeah, when we had went back to the States, um, like maybe 3 months before I gave birth, I got all my baby gear and stuff. I got my birthing ball. So I had my birthing ball. I was able to walk around my room. I didn't, There was no, with my third pregnancy, sorry, my third labor, I told them, was my third? No, sorry, with my first, I told them I didn't want to be hooked up to an IV. And they like insisted that they at least tap it, they're like, at least let us put a tap in case something happens. So it's like I didn't have anything sticking in my arm. There was no restrictions. I was free to walk around my house. I was free to sit where I wanted to sit. I could lay where I wanted to lay. You know, I feel like and you're a lot more comfortable in your home. Like I laid on my bed naked and it was fine. I wouldn't have felt fine laying in the hospital naked because they have 900 people coming in and out.
Yeah, in and out. No, no freedom, no comfort.
Yeah.
So, well, and would you say, kind of not everything went as planned. So, um, would you say though, even though it didn't go as planned, like you said, having the water warmed up and delivering in the water and all that, um, would you say it was, even with not having those things, that it was still as pleasant as you planned?
Um, yeah, I would. I feel like for women, this is how the Most High does us, right? So it's like you go through this ordeal and then it's like this haze. Like you don't even really remember everything that went on. You kind of remember bits and pieces here and there, but just remember the feeling afterward, right? And the feeling afterward that I had from having Zahara, my last pregnancy or my last labor, was a pleasant one. As if I enjoyed it. Like I was like, yeah, oh my gosh, I'm having this thing. I know that's not how it was, but the feeling I have was like, yeah, this is kind of cool. Like it's not really that cool. I don't know why I keep getting pregnant, but
I mean, so I mean, I would say, like, the moral of the story, the takeaway, right, is kind of like, we plan our way, right? The Most High directs our steps, but like you said, um, not having your expectations, super high, or maybe not having any expectations at all, but just planning your way and just literally knowing that, okay, these people that I have in place, like you said, advocating for you, so that um, they know your plan, they know what you want, what you desire. Like you said, your mother on your first birth, like, she was so supportive, she knew what you wanted. And so when you were in labor and you were um having to just focus on maybe just your keeping your peace and breathing, that you couldn't focus on all the other things. She was able to remember what your plan was, to be there for you. And then now, and like you said, now that you're in Belize, in your fourth um, pregnancy, labor, delivery, having somebody there for you to kind of know your plan so that you can stay focused on just being at peace and delivering your baby, and all these other people can handle the water, handle the, you know. So
exactly.
yeah, I mean, I feel like it's important to, like, remind those people out there, like the mothers, the new mothers especially, or even the new mothers who might not be new mothers but new to natural birth, to kind of keep that in mind. Like, don't keep your expectations up so high, but like plan your way and have somebody there um, to know your plan, so that when you're in labor, when you're delivering, you're not um, you have somebody there to support you and to make sure your wants are being and your needs are being met and your wants are happening.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
and so is there anything that you would kind of add to, like, giving advice to other moms out there?
Yeah. Your advocate doesn't have to be your mother. It doesn't have to be your husband. It can be a friend or a doula or, a midwife, somebody that you've hired. But It just needs to be somebody who you're comfortable with and somebody who is on your side, because I feel like the hospitals know that the best time to take advantage, or the best time to, because anesthesiologists are expensive. The best way to get those bills up and everything is when she's in the full swing. Like I remember, uh, I remember when I was in labor with Kamari, my first pregnancy, and they were trying to make me sign this contract for the anesthesiologist. Like, and I'm having rolling contractions. I'm constantly having contractions. I'm constantly in pain. And they're like, you need to sign this. You need to sign this right now. The anesthesiologist has other people to go see. You need to sign this. Like, I really felt like trying, like, do you understand that this is really, my mother's like, she doesn't want to, she can't do it right now. And sorry, I take it back. It couldn't have been that pregnancy. It had to be the second one. It was with Arya. So it wasn't with Kamari. So they were trying to get me to sign the paperwork. And I just feel like that's when they do these things. And so just having somebody who's really gonna go to bat for you is so crucial when going into labor, because we're just a cash crop in there. In and
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. And I mean, like you said how you, just like you said, mentioned just now. And then I was just remembering when you said how you did not want to be on your back. And, you know, you know, like you said, like we both have been saying, just not being able to trust or feel like you're being heard in like
Mm-hmm.
that setting. Um, I feel like there, like you said, you don't want to be on your back, or you didn't want to sign that. You don't have to. Like that's the
Yeah.
thing too. Like you said, they'll take advantage of you in that, in that moment. And if you're not prepared and know your rights, then yeah, you will just lay on your back and have birth, and things of that nature. Because like I didn't know those things either when I had my children until I came more aware after my fourth, and then my fifth. I didn't know I could just like tell, like not answer
No.
the questions or not lay on my back or any of that stuff. Like
Yeah.
you can literally have a whole plan, and like you don't have to be hooked up to that monitor, to that tight thing around your belly monitoring
Yeah.
to you. You don't have to have an IV. You don't have to do anything, um, and they don't explain that to you.
Yeah.
You have to find out on your own and do your own research. So
Mm-hmm.
this is not saying, for any, say, moms out there listening, to say, okay, don't ever have your baby in at a hospital medical field. I'm just saying, know your rights and
Yeah.
do your research, because so that you don't end up doing something that you didn't want to do. You know,
Yeah.
like have a baby on your back. Like doesn't even make, like I had my babies on my back, but like when you do your research and you realize like that's just not normal. It's
Yeah.
not like the way gravity works. And then when you actually have it when you're not on your back, it's like that could have caused me less pain or less issues. Some people are like, oh my goodness, I'll share my story another time. But like, there's a lot of things that, like you said, just in case something happens and they hook you up to an IV, and then it's like nobody asked you if they could put those medications in you, or, those type of things. So, um, I think it's nice, like hearing your story, how even though you Belize might not have so-called like the best medical system
Facilities.
there, yeah,
Yeah.
facilities or system there, that you were able to plan your birth, and it was safe, and it was pleasant, like you said, and you
Yes.
had the support you needed, because you did your research, and you knew what you needed to have this baby. So I mean, what would you give to any like birth service provider, for any mother out there who any birth service provider who are like listening to your story? Maybe they're like a first time doula, or they're thinking about being a midwife, or they are a midwife and they just are listening to the story, trying to figure out how they can meet the needs of the mothers they assist, what advice would you give them?
I would say don't be afraid to piss off the medical professionals. Like that's what we need. Like we need you to have all the attitude of all of our ancestors right then and there,
Yes.
because they're gonna push the line and they're gonna go against whatever it is that the mom really wants. And especially as a doula or a midwife, you know what is and what isn't realistic. And hopefully, if your client has had some unrealistic conditions or terms, that you would have voiced those to them. But most things are probably not unrealistic. But really fight for your client's rights. Like, I had my mother and I appreciate my mother so much. But what if I had a midwife or a doula there who knew what the doctors were saying about laying on my back was stupid, and who would have went toe to toe for me and fought for my right to give birth in a squatting position? Like, oh, your first time mama, you may rip because if you're not on your back. And then I end up ripping anyways because I pushed him out too quick. So it's like, you should have just let me be on my back. I mean, you should have just let me be squatting. But I would just say, really don't be afraid to fight for your clients. Like, the doctors aren't paying you, the hospital's not paying you. Fight for the things that your client deserves, and then be there to set the ambiance, because I don't know any woman who wants to give birth in a sterile hospital environment, like uncomfortable, unpleasant. So it's like, bring your essential oil diffusers, bring your radio. Because I mean, in my mind, I had all those things. I wanted all those things, but none of those things I don't think ever happened except for my last one. I don't think I had my smell goods and my music. So just kind of set the environment for your clients, because again, I'm sure every pregnant woman wants that.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. And please tell everybody about these awesome books. Like me and my children love these.
Bella!
Yes,
Yeah.
they're like, you don't even know. The kids love these. Like they're always trying to work on all of the the extra book work, and then like all all ages. Like that's what I'm like, you have to tell everybody about this story, because I even like, you would think people would think, oh, they can't, like, it's just for the older kids, but this is for like any child. Like, it
Yeah.
has scriptures, the word is like going straight to their spirit, like the rhymes, it's like, come on, like it's amazing. Please tell us about everything that you're doing, and about your stories.
So my story is the three little Hebrew boys and the big bad wolf, and it's the story of Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, Daniel chapter 3. And uh, the story is actually kind of, I call it a biblical fusion. So I take fairy tales and I fuse them with Bible stories, and so it follows the path of the three little pigs. No pigs were harmed in the making of this book or used. Um, but it follows the path of like the three little pigs, where they go through the wolf King Nebuchadnezzar, which incidentally at the end of his story in Daniel chapter 3, he actually kind of turns into like an animal, like a wolf. He gets fur and claws, so he's the wolf in the story, and he goes to the boys' houses, the three different houses, and he's tries to blow them down. And the book is in portion of the book is in rhyme. I do include direct quotes from the Bible. At the end of the book, I summarize all of it, the scriptures and the story of three little pigs. And what I really want to drive home in the story is charity, right? Because when you look at in the New Testament, it says, if you have all prophecies, if you have speaking in tongues, if you have interpretation, if you have healing, it doesn't matter if you don't have charity. It says like you're a broken musical instrument. So that is the moral of the story, is just to love your neighbors, love yourself, love your brother and sister, love your mom and dad. So the story's really cute, and I don't say that just because it's my own, but the story's really cute. And then I have a coloring books, coloring and activity books that go with the story. So I actually have two. One is for the older children, and the lines are different, so it gives them space to retell the story in their own words. Versus the younger children, I gave them the tracing lines to make it easier for those that are learning how to practice. And then it's got Hebrew tracing sheets so the children can learn to write in Hebrew.
It's awesome. That's awesome. I'm going to have everything in the show notes and also in the description. Also share what you're doing in Belize, the book
The
drive.
book drive. Yeah, so hopefully this month, I'm hoping that I will get my book drive kicked off. So representation is really important, right? And so in Belize, a lot of times, most of the time, we're getting secondhand things, and it's hard enough to get children's books in the States that have representation. So here in Belize, we really don't get it. And Belize is a country of melanated people.
Yeah.
So my book drive, I'm focusing on getting melanated authors to donate their books, along with just books in general. And one of my options is that people can purchase books through an Amazon wish list, which twofold helps the author and helps the book drive. So you're getting to support melanated authors by buying their books through Amazon. And then the children here in Belize also get the melanated books. So
Awesome.
I'm hoping to raise a bajillion books. That's my goal, a bajillion. It's a real number. All the books will be given out for free to the children here,
nice.
to the different school systems. A lot of children don't have books at home. Reading is a big issue here, especially now with COVID and the social distance learning. Most children don't have access to internet or computers. They try to get tablets out here, but it's widening the gap, for these children on an international level if they wanted to, perhaps leave Belize or go to school out of country or, want to be able to compete in a global market. This pandemic is really just like shuttering everything for them. So it's, really important now to be able to get books into the homes for these children so that their parents can help them learn to read. So
Nice.
that's the goal.
All right. And your website?
The website for the book drive is the letter R, DEUT 28.com. And for my books, if you're interested in purchasing my books, The Three Little Hebrew Boys and the Big Bad Wolf, which also will be in the book drive, no fear, is DEUT, the number 6, and then FOUR.com.
All right. Well, I'll have everything, like I said before, in the show notes and in the description. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you for listening to Keturah Renee's birth story. How about you? Do you have a story to empower Hebrew mothers and Hebrew home birth service providers? Then head over to Hebrew Home Birth and join the community to help Hebrew women create more holy birth plans.